The massive space station turned slowly in the darkness, its lights twinkling like stars against the black void. Nexus Prime was the biggest diplomatic station in the galaxy, a place where over 200 different alien species came to talk and make deals. It floated near a huge gas giant called Kepler 442b, safe from wars and conflicts. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the long metal corridors of the station. He was a tall man with brown hair and calm blue eyes. He wore a simple, blue uniform with no weapons or fancy decorations. Other aliens moved past him in the hallway. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few glowed with strange lights. They all looked at Jake with curious eyes, but none seemed worried about him. Jake stopped at a large window that showed the gas giant below. The planet was beautiful, with swirling clouds of purple and gold. He smiled softly as he watched it spin. To anyone looking at him, Jake seemed like a peaceful man who loved looking at pretty things in space. "Captain Morrison," a voice called behind him. Jake turned to see Dr. Lisa Grant walking toward him. She was a short woman with red hair tied back in a neat bun. She carried a tablet computer and looked excited about something. "What did you find, Lisa?" Jake asked in a gentle voice. "The behavioral patterns are fascinating," Lisa said, her eyes bright with interest. "I have been studying how different species act during these meetings. The predator species always try to control the room. They speak loudly, show their teeth, and take up lots of space. The prey species stay quiet, keep their heads down, and agree with whatever the predators say." Jake nodded slowly. "And where do the other species think humans fit in this pattern?" Lisa laughed softly. "They think we are prey species, of course. We speak quietly, we smile a lot, and we never threaten anyone. Most aliens here think humans are just lucky that we never got eaten by stronger species." "How interesting," Jake said, his smile never changing. But something cold flickered in his eyes for just a moment. They walked together toward the main meeting hall. The corridor was full of aliens preparing for the big diplomatic session. In one corner, a group of tall reptilian creatures stood talking in harsh voices. These were the Vorthans, a military species that controlled dozens of planets through force. Their leader, Ambassador Zethkar, was over 8 feet tall with dark green scales and yellow eyes like a snake. On the other side of the corridor, floating beings made of light whispered to each other in musical tones. These were the Celestians, an ancient species that loved peace and art. Their leader, High Counselor Mithera, glowed with soft blue light and had a voice like wind chimes. "The Vorthons are getting more aggressive," Lisa whispered to Jake. "They have been demanding that the Celestians give them 3 of their colony worlds. If the Celestians refuse, the Vorthans say they will start a war." Jake watched the two groups carefully. The Vorthans stood like soldiers ready to fight. The Celestians floated like worried ghosts afraid of what might happen. "That is why we are here," Jake said quietly. "To help them find a peaceful solution." They entered the main meeting hall, a huge room with a circular table in the center. Representatives from dozens of species sat around the table, each in their own special chair or floating platform. Jake and Lisa took their seats in simple metal chairs. Compared to the fancy thrones and floating crystals of the other species, the human seats looked very plain. Ambassador Zethkar stood up, his massive form casting a shadow over the smaller aliens near him. "We have waited long enough," he said in a voice like grinding rocks. "The Celestian colonies of harmony, serenity, and peaceful rest belong to the Vorthan Empire now. We will take them with or without your permission." High Counselor Mithara's light flickered with sadness. "Those worlds have been our homes for thousands of years. Our people live there in peace. Why do you want to take them from us?" "Because we can," Zethkar replied with a cruel laugh. "The strong take what they want. The weak give up what they have. This is the law of nature." Other alien representatives started talking at once. Some supported the Vorthans because they were afraid of them. Others felt sorry for the Celestians but were too scared to help. The noise in the room grew louder and more angry. Jake Morrison stood up slowly. The room gradually became quiet as everyone looked at the human diplomat. He was so much smaller than most of the other beings in the room, and his voice was soft when he spoke. "Perhaps there is another way to solve this problem," Jake said with a gentle smile. "In human culture, we believe that the best solutions help everyone. What if the Vorthan Empire could get what it needs without taking the Celestian colonies?" Ambassador Zethkar turned his yellow eyes toward Jake. For a moment he looked confused, as if he had forgotten humans were even in the room. Then he started, laughing, a sound like breaking glass. "Humans," Zethkar said, shaking his massive head. "You soft little creatures do not understand how the galaxy really works. You think everything can be solved with kind words and gentle smiles. You have never had to fight for anything in your entire history." Other Vorthan representatives joined in the laughter. Some of the predator species from other worlds also chuckled. To them, humans looked like helpless animals that had somehow learned to talk. "Your species only survived because you were lucky," Zethkar continued. "You lived on a safe little world where nothing dangerous could reach you. You never learned what it means to be truly strong. You are herbivores pretending to understand carnivores." Jake's smile never changed, but Lisa noticed that his hands were very still on the table. Most people moved their hands when they talked, but Jake sat like a statue. "You might be right, Ambassador," Jake said in the same gentle voice. "Humans have always preferred peaceful solutions. We do not like violence or conflict. But sometimes when peaceful creatures are threatened, they can surprise you." "Surprise us?" Zethkar laughed again. What could soft little humans possibly do to surprise anyone? Before Jake could answer, a loud alarm started ringing throughout the station. Red lights flashed on the walls and a mechanical voice began speaking. "Emergency alert. Emergency alert. Serenity station has gone silent. All communication has been lost. This is not a drill." The room fell completely silent. Serenity Station was a small research outpost on the edge of Celestian space. It was supposed to be one of the safest places in the galaxy. Jake Morrison stood up from his chair, his face showing concern for the first time. "We should send a rescue mission immediately," he said. "Human ships are fast and well equipped for emergency response. We can be there in 6 hours." High Counselor Mithera's light grew brighter with hope. "Would you really help us?" "Of course," Jake replied with his gentle smile. "Helping others is what humans do best." But as Jake spoke these kind words, Lisa noticed something strange. Commander Pete Johnson, the chief of human security, was standing near the back of the room. He had received a message on his communication device, and after reading it, he was smiling. It was not a gentle smile like Jake's. It was the kind of smile a person makes when they hear very good news about something they have been waiting for. Lisa looked back at Jake, who was still talking about rescue missions and helping the poor Celestians. His voice was full of sympathy and concern. But his eyes, she realized, were not looking at the Celestians at all. They were watching Ambassador Zethkar, studying the big reptilian like a scientist studying an interesting specimen. For just a moment, Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. Something about the whole situation felt wrong, but she could not figure out what it was. The attack on Serenity Station seemed to come at exactly the right time, just when the diplomatic talks were getting difficult. As the emergency meeting continued and plans were made for rescue missions, Lisa kept watching her fellow humans. They all seemed genuinely concerned and eager to help. But there was something in their eyes, something patient and calculating, that made her wonder if there was more to this situation than anyone realized. Detective Ray Collins stepped off the human transport ship with a tired look on his face. He was a middle-aged man with gray hair and wrinkled clothes that looked like he had slept in them. He carried an old briefcase and walked slowly, like someone who had seen too many crime scenes in his life. "Detective Collins," Jake Morrison said, walking up to greet him. "Thank you for coming so quickly." Ray shrugged and looked around the docking bay of Nexus Prime. "Just doing my job, Captain. Though I have to say this is my first case in space. Usually I investigate murders in New York, not whatever happened to that research station." Dr. Lisa Grant joined them, still carrying her tablet computer. "The rescue ships found Serenity Station 3 hours ago," she said. "There were no survivors. 43 scientists and staff members, all dead." Ray opened his briefcase and pulled out a small recording device. Tell me what the rescue teams found. Lisa looked uncomfortable. It was not like any attack I have ever heard about. The station was not destroyed by weapons. Instead, someone went inside and killed everyone very carefully. The attackers knew exactly where to find each person and exactly how to disable all the security systems. Sounds like professionals, Ray said, making notes. What about security cameras? That is the strange part, Lisa replied. Most of the camera system was broken, but we found a few short video clips. The attackers moved through the station like ghosts. They knew every corridor, every room, every hiding place. Jake listened to this conversation with a concerned expression. We should go to the station and look at the scene ourselves, he said. The Celestians are very upset, and the Vorthans are starting to blame them for staging the attack to get sympathy. Why would the Vorthans think that? Ray asked. Because, Jake said quietly, the attack happened at exactly the right time to stop Ambassador Zethkar from taking the Celestian colonies. Now everyone is focused on finding the attackers instead of talking about territorial disputes. 2 hours later, Ray Collins was floating in a spacesuit outside Serenity Station. The research outpost was a small collection of connected buildings, orbiting a dead moon. From the outside, it looked perfectly normal. There were no blast marks, no signs of weapons fire, no evidence of a space battle. Dr. Amy Foster, a human forensic specialist, was already inside the station taking pictures and collecting evidence. She was a young woman with blonde hair and very careful hands. She had been examining crime scenes for 10 years, but this one was different from anything she had seen before. Ray, Amy said through the radio, you need to see this. The attackers did not just kill these people. They terrified them first. Ray floated through the airlock and into the main corridor of the station. The lights were still working, and everything looked clean and organized, but there was something wrong with the air itself, something that made him feel watched. Look at this, Amy said, pointing to scratch marks on a metal wall. These are fingernail marks. Someone was trying to claw their way through solid steel. The person who made these marks was completely panicked. Ray examined the scratches. They were deep and desperate. What could scare someone that badly? I do not know, Amy replied. But whatever it was, it happened to everyone on the station. We found similar panic signs in every room. People tried to hide in closets, under desks, even in the air vents, but the attackers found them all. They moved deeper into the station. In the central computer room, Amy showed Ray something even stranger. The main computer was still working, but someone had accessed it during the attack. The attackers did not just kill the staff, Amy explained. They downloaded every file from the computer system. Research data, personal messages, station logs, everything. This was not random violence. Someone wanted specific information. Ray was looking at a security screen that showed the last few minutes of camera footage before the system was destroyed. The image was fuzzy and kept breaking up, but he could see dark shapes moving through the corridors with impossible speed and coordination. Can you clean up this video? Ray asked. Amy worked on her computer for several minutes. Slowly, the image became clearer. Ray could see 3 figures dressed in black moving through the station. They did not run or rush. They moved with careful, patient steps like hunters tracking wounded animals. There, Amy said, pointing at the screen. Look at how they move. See how the one in front stops and tilts his head? He is listening for something. And watch the other 2. They do not look around nervously like normal people would. They know exactly where they are going. Ray studied the video carefully. There was something familiar about the way these attackers moved, but he could not place it. How long did the whole attack take? According to the station logs, 12 minutes, Amy replied.
12 minutes to infiltrate a secure research station, disable all security, hunt down 43 people hiding throughout the facility, and download every computer file. That is not possible for normal criminals. Captain Rex Turner's voice came through their radio communicators.
Rex was the pilot of the human scout ship that had brought them to the station. Detective Collins, Dr. Foster, you might want to come back to the ship. We just received another emergency call. Ray and Amy looked at each other. Another attack? Ray asked. Vorthon supply convoy, Rex replied. 3 cargo ships completely destroyed. Same kind of attack pattern. No survivors, but the attackers left one ship intact with all its data stolen. As they flew away from Serenity Station toward the site of the new attack, Ray sat in the passenger compartment thinking. 2 attacks in 2 days, both perfectly timed to increase tensions between the Vorthons and Celestians. Both attacks showed the same impossible level of planning and execution. Dr. Lisa Grant was also on the ship, studying her tablet computer. "Ray," she said quietly, "I have been researching attack patterns in galactic history. There are legends about something called ghost fleets, ships that appeared without warning, struck with perfect precision and vanished before anyone could respond." "Legends?" Ray asked. "Old stories from the early days of space exploration," Lisa replied. "Most species dismiss them as myths, but the attack patterns described in these legends match exactly what happened at Serenity Station." Ray looked out the window at the stars rushing past. "How old are these legends?" "Some of them are over 500 years old," Lisa said. "But here's the interesting part. They all stopped around the same time. When? About 200 years ago, right around the time humans first made contact with galactic civilization. The ship's communication system buzzed with an incoming message. Rex Turner's voice came through the speakers. "We are approaching the attack site now. Vorthon military ships are already here, and they do not look happy." Through the window, Ray could see the wreckage of the Vorthon supply convoy floating in space. 3 massive cargo ships had been torn apart with surgical precision, but one ship remained untouched, spinning slowly among the debris. Admiral Kate Brooks's voice came through the radio. She was the commander of the human peacekeeping fleet that had arrived to help with the crisis. "This is Admiral Brooks to all human vessels. We are now officially involved in this investigation. Whatever is happening out here, it threatens the stability of the entire galaxy." Ray Collins looked at the destruction outside and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. Someone was playing a very dangerous game, using these attacks to manipulate galactic politics. But who had the knowledge, the resources, and the patience to plan something this complex? As their ship moved closer to the wreckage, Ray noticed something that made him frown. Captain Rex Turner was flying through the debris field with perfect confidence, avoiding floating metal pieces without even looking at his navigation screen. It was as if Rex had been here before and knew exactly where every piece of wreckage was located. "Rex," Ray called toward the cockpit. "How did you know to avoid that piece of debris on the left?" Rex was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Lucky, guess I suppose. Good reflexes from years of flying." But Ray had been watching carefully. Rex had started turning away from that debris before it was even visible on the ship's sensors. Either Rex Turner had impossibly good reflexes, or he had known exactly what they would find when they arrived at the attack site. Lisa Grant was still reading her tablet, but Ray noticed that her hands were shaking slightly. She had found something that scared her, something she did not want to share with the others. "Lisa," Ray said quietly, "what else did you discover about those Ghost Fleet legends?" Lisa looked around nervously, making sure no one else was listening. Then she whispered, "The legends all describe the same thing. Patient hunters who studied their prey for years before striking. Attackers who could disappear into normal society and look completely harmless. Predators who were so good at hiding their true nature that their victims never saw them coming." Ray felt his stomach drop. "And you think these attackers are connected to the old ghost fleets?" "I think," Lisa whispered, "that the ghost fleets never really disappeared. I think they just got better at hiding." Admiral Kate Brooks stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching dozens of human ships move into position around Nexus Prime. From the outside, her fleet looked peaceful. The ships were painted white with red medical crosses and scientific symbols. Most aliens who saw them thought they were hospital ships and research vessels coming to help during the crisis. Kate was a tall woman with short black hair and sharp green eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with no weapons or military decorations. When she spoke to other species, her voice was always calm and helpful. But when she thought no one was watching, her eyes moved constantly, studying everything around her like a hunter watching prey. "Admiral," Lieutenant Dan Price said from his communication station, "we are receiving reports from human civilian ships throughout the galaxy. All report unusual activity in their sectors. Kate nodded slowly. How many ships are reporting in? Over 3,000, Admiral, Dan replied. Merchant vessels, exploration ships, scientific expeditions, colony transports. They are spread across every major star system in known space. Kate smiled slightly. To anyone listening, it would sound like humans just happen to have many ships scattered around the galaxy for normal, peaceful reasons. But the truth was different. Every one of those ships was exactly where it needed to be, watching and waiting for orders. On Nexus Prime, the situation was getting worse every hour. Ambassador Zethkar had called more Vorthan warships to protect his people. High Counselor Mithara had asked for Celestian defense fleets to guard their remaining colonies. The two sides were preparing for a war that could destroy millions of lives. Jake Morrison walked through the station corridors, visiting different alien representatives. He carried a tablet computer with peace proposals and compromise solutions. Every alien he talked to saw a gentle diplomat trying his best to prevent a terrible war. Captain Morrison, Ambassador Zethkar said when Jake visited the Vorthan section, your people are wasting their time. These attacks prove that someone wants to start a war between us and the Celestians. The only way to stop more attacks is to show strength. Jake nodded thoughtfully. You might be right, Ambassador. But what if the attackers want you to respond? With force? What if starting a war is exactly what they hope you will do? Zethkar's yellow eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Think about it, Jake said in his soft voice. The attacks hurt both Vorthans and Celestians. Someone benefits when your two species fight each other. But who? This made Zethkar pause. He had not considered that someone else might be manipulating the situation. Do you have any ideas about who these attackers might be? Jake shook his head sadly. Human intelligence networks are not very advanced. We are explorers and scientists, not spies or soldiers. But we are willing to help investigate if you want us to. What Zethkar did not know was that while Jake spoke these humble words, Lieutenant Dan Price was coordinating with human ships across the galaxy. Every human vessel was part of a vast information network that had been watching and recording alien military movements for decades. Dr. Lisa Grant was in her laboratory, studying the evidence from both attack sites. She had found something that made her very uncomfortable. The attack patterns were not random. They followed a specific strategy that she recognized from her studies of predator behavior on Earth. Persistence hunting, she whispered to herself as she looked at her computer screen. The attackers are not trying to destroy their enemies quickly. They are wearing them down slowly, making them panic and make mistakes. On Earth, human ancestors had hunted large animals by chasing them for hours or days until the prey became exhausted and could no longer run. It was a patient, intelligent way of hunting that required planning and teamwork. Lisa realized that someone was using the same strategy on a galactic scale. Ray Collins was also studying the evidence, but he was focusing on something different. He had found traces of advanced technology at both attack sites. The attackers had used equipment that was more sophisticated than anything most species possessed. Amy, Ray said to Dr. Foster, look at these energy readings from Serenity Station. The attackers used some kind of advanced scanning device to see through walls and locate hiding people. Amy examined the data on her computer. That is military-grade technology, Ray. Very few species in the galaxy have equipment like this. Which species? Ray asked. Amy was quiet for a moment, checking her databases. According to galactic records, only 3 species have this level of scanning technology. The Vorthans, the Celestians, and who? Ray pressed. Humans, Amy said quietly. But our technology is supposed to be for medical and scientific purposes only. Before Ray could respond, alarms started ringing throughout Nexus Prime again. Another attack had happened, this time targeting a major Celestian cultural center. Hundreds of innocent people were dead, and the attackers had once again vanished without a trace. Colonel Sue Martinez was in the Human Military Coordination Center, which was disguised as a medical supply depot. She was a short woman with brown hair and cold gray eyes. Her job was to plan strategic operations, and she was very good at it. Colonel, Major Chris Baker reported, The third attack has been completed successfully, all objectives achieved with minimal resource expenditure. Sue nodded and made notes on her tactical display. Excellent work, Major. The target populations are responding exactly as predicted. Stress levels are increasing. Decision-making capabilities are declining, and both sides are becoming more aggressive. On her screen, Sue could see detailed psychological profiles of every major alien leader in the galaxy. The humans had been studying alien behavior for years, learning how each species reacted to different types of pressure. Now they were using that knowledge to guide galactic events in the direction they wanted. Dr. Nina Ross, a psychological warfare specialist disguised as a medical officer, was monitoring alien communication channels. She listened to private conversations between alien leaders, analyzing their emotional states and predicting their next actions. The Vorthons are planning a preemptive strike against Celestian colonies, Nina reported. They believe the Celestians are behind the attacks and are preparing to eliminate the threat. And the Celestians? Sue asked. They are requesting emergency assistance from neutral species, Nina replied. They want to form a defensive alliance against Vorthon aggression. Sue smiled coldly. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The two most powerful species in the galaxy were about to destroy each other, leaving a power vacuum that someone else could fill. Sergeant Mike Davis was leading a team of human technicians through the lower levels of Nexus Prime. They were supposedly checking life support systems, but they were actually installing advanced surveillance equipment throughout the station. Sergeant, one of his men whispered, we have eyes and ears in every major alien delegation now. We can monitor all their communications and track their movements. Mike nodded. Good work. Make sure the equipment is completely invisible. If anyone discovers what we are doing, the whole operation could be compromised. Back on the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Kate Brooks received a coded message from Earth. She read it quickly, then deleted it from her computer system. The message was simple. Phase 3 authorized. Proceed when ready. Kate looked out at her peaceful-looking fleet of medical and science ships. Hidden beneath their innocent exterior were weapon systems more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets, but they looked like harmless rescue vessels. Lieutenant Price, Kate said, send a message to all human civilian vessels. Tell them to prepare for emergency evacuation procedures. Dan. Price understood immediately. The message was code for get ready for military operations. Across the galaxy, thousands of human ships began quietly moving into strategic positions while continuing to look like innocent merchants and explorers. On Nexus Prime, Jake Morrison was meeting with both Ambassador Zethkar and High Counselor Fithara. The two alien leaders sat on opposite sides of the room, glaring at each other with hatred and suspicion. Gentlemen, Jake said in his gentle voice, we are running out of time. If these attacks continue, there will be open war within days. Millions of innocent people will die. The Celestians must be stopped, Zethkar growled. They are using these fake attacks to gain sympathy while planning to strike at us. The Vorthons are the aggressors, Mithara replied, his light flickering with anger. They want our colonies and are using these attacks as an excuse to take them. Jake listened to both sides argue, his face showing deep concern for the terrible situation. But Lisa Grant, watching from across the room, noticed something strange. While Jake's face showed worry and sadness, his hands were completely relaxed. Most people showed stress in their body language when they were genuinely upset. But Jake sat perfectly still, like a person who knew exactly what was going to happen next. There is one solution, Jake said suddenly. Human forces could act as neutral peacekeepers. We could protect both sides from further attacks while investigators find the real culprits. Both alien leaders looked at Jake with surprise. The idea of humans acting as military protectors seemed almost ridiculous. Humans were known for being weak and peaceful, not strong enough to stop a galactic war. No offense. Major Chris Baker stood in the cargo bay of what looked like a medical supply ship. Around him, 24 humans dressed in white doctor uniforms were checking their equipment. But these were not medical tools they were preparing. Hidden beneath false panels and fake medical containers were weapons, armor, and military gear more advanced than anything most species had ever seen. Chris was a big man with short blonde hair and scars on his hands from years of combat training. He spoke quietly to his team, going over their mission one more time. "Remember, we are supposed to be rescue workers," Chris said. "If anyone asks, we are here to help survivors and provide medical aid. But stay alert. The real work begins once we find the attackers." Dr. Nina Ross was also in the cargo bay, but she was not preparing medical equipment. She was setting up psychological analysis computers disguised as patient monitoring devices. Nina was an expert at reading alien minds and predicting their behavior. "The mercenaries we are hunting will be scared," Nina explained to the team. They thought they were just doing simple raids for easy money. They did not expect to be hunted by anyone this skilled. Fear makes people make mistakes. The Joint Task Force had finally launched from Nexus Prime. 50 ships from different species were flying together toward the outer rim of the galaxy, where intelligence reports suggested the attackers were hiding. The human ships flew in the middle of the formation, looking peaceful and harmless, surrounded by alien warships. Admiral Kate Brooks watched the alien ships from her command bridge. The Vorthan vessels were massive and covered with visible weapons. The Celestian ships glowed, with energy shields and advanced technology. Compared to them, the human fleet looked like a collection of floating hospitals. "Admiral," Lieutenant Dan Price reported, "our scout ships are detecting a large asteroid field ahead. Perfect place to hide a base." Kate nodded. "And perfect place for an ambush. Signal the alien ships that we should proceed carefully." But what the aliens did not know was that human ships had been mapping this asteroid field for months. Every rock, every hiding place, every possible escape route had been studied and recorded. The humans knew exactly what they would find when they arrived. Ray Collins was aboard one of the human ships, still investigating the attacks. He had been studying the evidence for days, and he was starting to see a pattern that disturbed him greatly. "Amy," Ray said to Dr. Foster, "look at this data from all 3 attack sites. The attackers always knew exactly where to strike for maximum psychological impact." Amy examined the information on her computer. "You are right, Ray. They did not just kill people randomly. They chose specific targets that would cause the most fear and anger. But how could mercenaries know enough about alien psychology to plan attacks like this?" Ray asked. Amy was quiet for a moment. "They could not," she said finally. "This level of psychological warfare requires years of study and detailed knowledge of how different species think and react." Ray felt a cold fear growing in his stomach. "Amy, what if the people who planned these attacks have been studying alien psychology for a very long time? What if they know more about alien behavior than the aliens know about themselves?" Before Amy could answer, alarms started ringing throughout their ship. They had reached the asteroid field and someone was shooting at them. The Joint Task Force found itself under attack from dozens of hidden ships scattered throughout the asteroid field. The attackers used the rocks for cover, appearing suddenly, to fire weapons before disappearing again. "All ships, this is Admiral Brooks," Kate's voice came through the communication system. "Human vessels are moving to support positions. We will coordinate rescue operations for any damaged ships." The alien commanders were grateful for human help. The Vorthan and Celestian ships were powerful, but they were designed for open space combat, not for fighting among asteroids. The human ships, however, moved through the asteroid field like they had been there many times before. Sergeant Mike Davis was leading a boarding team onto a captured mercenary ship. He wore the white uniform of a medical technician, but underneath, his clothes was advanced combat armor. His team moved through the enemy ship with perfect coordination, finding and capturing mercenaries with impossible speed. "Please do not hurt us," one of the captured mercenaries begged. He was a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms. "We were just following orders. We did not know who we were really working for." Mike looked at the prisoner with cold eyes. "Who hired you?" "We never met them directly," the mercenary said, shaking with fear. "All our orders came through encrypted messages. The pay was good, and the job seemed simple." Dr. Nina Ross stepped forward, holding what looked like a medical scanner, but it was actually a sophisticated interrogation device that could read alien brain patterns and detect lies. "Tell me about your orders," Nina said in a gentle voice. What exactly were you told to do? Attack specific targets at specific times, the mercenary replied. We were given detailed plans for each raid. The plans showed us exactly where to find security systems where people would be hiding, how to cause maximum terror. Who could have provided such detailed information? Nina asked. Someone who had studied those places for a long time, the mercenary said. Someone who knew everything about the targets before we attacked them. Nina smiled, but it was not a kind smile. Thank you for your cooperation. You have been very helpful. Back on the command ship, Admiral Kate Brooks was receiving reports from all the human teams scattered throughout the asteroid field. Every mercenary ship had been captured, every base had been raided, and every piece of evidence had been collected. Admiral, Lieutenant Dan Price said, we have recovered all the stolen data from the attacks. We also found records of who hired the mercenaries. Kate looked at the information on her screen. And what did we discover? The attacks were planned by a coalition of 12 different species, Dan replied. They wanted to start a war between the Vorthans and Celestians so they could take over the territory of both sides. How convenient, Kate said quietly. Send this information to Jake Morrison on Nexus Prime. He will know what to do with it. But what really interested Kate was not the information about the mercenaries. It was the tactical performance of the human ships during the battle. For the first time, alien observers had seen human vessels in combat situations, and they had performed far better than anyone expected. Captain Rex Turner was piloting his scout ship through the asteroid field, helping to search for escaped mercenaries. But Rex was also doing something else. He was testing alien reactions to human military capabilities. This is Captain Turner to all ships, Rex said over the radio. I am detecting 3 escaped mercenary vessels trying to flee through the outer asteroids. Human ships are moving to intercept. The alien commanders watched their displays as the human ships suddenly accelerated to impossible speeds, moving through the dangerous asteroid field like it was empty space. The supposed medical and science vessels revealed hidden weapon systems and advanced maneuvering capabilities that should not have existed. How are the human ships moving so fast? A Vorthan captain asked over the communication channel. Emergency medical response systems, Rex replied smoothly. Human rescue ships are designed to reach accident sites quickly. But the Vorthan captain was not convinced. He had been watching the human ships carefully, and their performance was more like advanced military vessels than medical transports. On Nexus Prime, Jake Morrison was meeting with Ambassador Zethkar and High Counselor Mithera. Again, the evidence from the asteroid field had been delivered, proving that neither the Vorthans nor the Celestians were behind the attacks. So we have been manipulated, Zethkar said, his yellow eyes burning with anger. Someone wanted us to destroy each other. The important thing is that we discovered the truth before it was too late, Jake said in his calm voice. Now we can work together to prevent something like this from happening again. How do we know there are not other conspiracies waiting to strike? Mithara asked, his light flickering with worry. Jake smiled his diplomatic smile. That is why the galaxy needs better security. Human intelligence networks could help monitor for future threats. Dr. Lisa Grant was listening to this conversation from the back of the room. She had been studying the tactical reports from the asteroid battle, and what she found made her very uncomfortable. The human ships had not just performed well in combat. They had performed perfectly. Every movement, every decision, every tactical choice had been exactly right. It was as if the humans had known exactly what they would find in the asteroid field before they arrived there. Lisa looked at Jake Morrison, who was still talking about peace and cooperation with the alien leaders. His voice was gentle and reassuring, but Lisa noticed that his eyes kept moving to check the time display on the wall. Jake was waiting for something to happen. Jake, Lisa said quietly when the meeting ended, I need to ask you something important. What is it, Lisa? The human ships in that asteroid field, Lisa said. They moved like they had been there before. They knew every hiding place, every escape route, every tactical advantage. How is that possible? Jake looked at her for a long moment. Perhaps human navigation systems are better than most people think. Navigation systems do not explain tactical perfection, LI. General Frank Miller stood on the bridge of the human flagship, looking out at a sight that would change galactic history forever. The void nebula stretched before them, a dark cloud of gas and dust where no stars could shine. Hidden inside that nebula was the largest fleet of warships the galaxy had ever seen. Frank was an older man with gray hair and steel blue eyes that had seen too many battles. Unlike the other humans who had been pretending to be diplomats and doctors, Frank wore his real uniform. It was black with silver markings, and it showed his true rank as the supreme commander of all human military forces. "General," Dr. Helen Ward reported from her station, "our intelligence networks confirm that over 500 enemy ships are hiding in the nebula. 12 different species have joined together to eliminate both the Vorthans and Celestians." Helen was a small woman with short brown hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. For months, she had been coordinating a spy network that stretched across the entire galaxy. Every human merchant ship, every research vessel, every innocent-looking transport had been gathering information about alien military capabilities. "They think they are setting a trap for the Vorthans and Celestians," Frank said with a cold smile. "They do not realize that they have walked into our trap instead." In the nebula, the conspiracy fleet was preparing for their final attack. Admiral Corex, a reptilian commander from the Saurian Empire, was speaking to the other conspiracy leaders over a secure communication channel. "Once we destroy the Vorthan and Celestian fleets," Admiral Corex said, "the galaxy will belong to us. No more pretending to respect those arrogant fools. No more bowing to species that think they are better than us." "What about the humans?" asked General Vex, an insectoid leader from the Hive worlds. "Their ships performed well in the asteroid battle. Should we be concerned about them?" Admiral Corex laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Humans? They are herbivores with lucky technology. Their entire fleet consists of medical ships and science vessels. Once we control the galaxy, we will keep them as pets." The conspiracy leaders did not know that their communication channels had been monitored by human intelligence for weeks. Every plan, every ship movement, every tactical decision had been recorded and analyzed. Back on Nexus Prime, Jake Morrison was addressing the Galactic Council for what he said would be the last time as a simple diplomatic attaché. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the great meeting hall, all grateful that the crisis had been resolved peacefully. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jake said in his gentle voice, "we have learned that this entire conflict was manufactured by enemies who wanted to destroy galactic peace. Thanks to cooperation between our species, we have identified the real threat." Ambassador Zethkar nodded respectfully. "Captain Morrison, your people have proven themselves to be valuable allies. The Vorthan Empire will not forget human assistance during this crisis." High Counselor Mithara's light glowed warmly. "The Celestian Collective agrees. Humans have shown wisdom and courage in helping us avoid a terrible war." Jake smiled his diplomatic smile, but Dr. Lisa Grant, watching from the back of the room, noticed that this time his smile was different. It was not the gentle expression of a peaceful diplomat. It was the satisfied look of a hunter who had successfully cornered his prey. "Thank you for your kind words," Jake said, "but I must be honest with all of you. There is something about humans that you do not understand." The alien representatives looked confused. What could Jake Morrison possibly need to explain about humans? They had proven themselves to be helpful, peaceful, and trustworthy. "The truth is," Jake continued, "everything you think you know about my species is wrong." At that moment, alarms began ringing throughout Nexus Prime. On every display screen in the station, the same image appeared. It showed the void nebula, and emerging from that dark cloud came the conspiracy fleet of 500 warships, all moving toward Vorthan and Celestian territory. But between the conspiracy fleet and their targets, another fleet appeared. The human peacekeeping force that had been protecting Nexus Prime suddenly transformed before everyone's eyes. Admiral Kate Brooks gave a single command, and the human ships dropped their disguises. Medical vessels revealed hidden armor plating and weapon systems. Science ships extended massive gun barrels and missile launchers, Transport vessels opened their cargo bays to release squadrons of fighter craft. In 30 seconds, 200 innocent-looking civilian ships became the most advanced military fleet in galactic history. "What you are seeing," Jake Morrison announced, to the shocked alien representatives, is a small part of humanity's actual military capability. Captain Joe Lewis was leading human special forces teams onto conspiracy ships throughout the nebula. His soldiers moved with a coordination and efficiency that terrified their enemies. Every human fighter knew exactly where to go, exactly what to do, and exactly how to disable alien resistance without unnecessary killing. "Please surrender," Joe said calmly to a group of captured alien officers. "We do not want to hurt you, but we will not allow you to threaten innocent species." The conspiracy fleet tried to fight back, but they quickly realized they were facing something impossible. The human ships moved like a pack of wolves, surrounding and isolating enemy vessels with perfect teamwork. When the aliens tried to escape, they found that humans had already predicted their escape routes and blocked them. Back in the meeting hall, Jake Morrison was explaining the truth about humanity to an audience of stunned alien diplomats. "For thousands of years," Jake said, "humans evolved as persistence hunters. We tracked our prey for days or weeks until they became exhausted and made mistakes. We learned to work together in coordinated groups, sharing information and planning complex strategies." Dr. Lisa Grant finally understood what she had been seeing all along: the patience, the careful planning, the perfect coordination. Humans had been hunting on a galactic scale. "When we first encountered galactic civilization," Jake continued, "we realized that we were surrounded by potential predators and prey species, so we did what humans have always done. We studied our environment, learned about the other species, and planned for every possible threat." Admiral Zethkar's yellow eyes were wide with shock. "You mean the peaceful exploration missions, the scientific expeditions, the cultural exchanges?" "Were reconnaissance missions," Jake confirmed. "For 200 years, humans have been mapping the galaxy, studying alien psychology, and preparing for the day when we might need to protect ourselves or others." General Frank Miller's voice came through the communication system, broadcasting to every ship and station in the local star systems. "This is General Miller of the Human Defense Force. The conspiracy fleet has been neutralized. All enemy vessels have surrendered or been disabled. Galactic peace has been restored." The battle in the Void Nebula had lasted less than 1 hour. 500 conspiracy ships had been defeated by 200 human vessels, without a single Allied casualty. "But how?" High Counselor Mithera asked, his light flickering with confusion. "How did you hide such advanced technology and military capability?" Jake Morrison smiled, and for the first time, it was not a diplomatic smile. It was the smile of an apex predator who no longer needed to hide his true nature. "We hid in plain sight," Jake explained. "Every human ship you ever saw was exactly what it appeared to be: a medical ship, a science vessel, a transport craft. But it was also a military vessel with hidden capabilities. Every human you met was exactly who they claimed to be: a diplomat, a doctor, a merchant. But they were also intelligence officers, strategic planners, and soldiers." Dr. Helen Ward appeared on the communication screens, showing detailed maps of the galaxy with thousands of human ships marked in every star system. "We have been watching and protecting all of you for generations," Helen said. "Every trade route, every colony world, every important facility has been under human observation." The alien representatives sat in stunned silence as they realized the implications. Humans had not been weak species hiding behind stronger allies. They had been the strongest species in the galaxy, pretending to be weak while they studied and protected everyone else. "Why?" Ambassador Zethkar finally asked. "If you had this much power, why did you pretend to be peaceful diplomats?" Jake Morrison stood up and walked to the center of the room. "Because," he said, "the most successful predators are the ones their prey never see coming. And because true apex predators do not hunt their prey to extinction, they manage their environment to ensure healthy populations for the future." "You mean," Mithara whispered. "We mean that a stable galaxy with peaceful, prosperous species serves humanity's interests better than a galaxy full of war and chaos," Jake explained. So we have been maintaining that stability from the shadows, intervening only when necessary, to prevent major conflicts. Ray Collins, who had been investigating the attacks from the beginning, finally spoke up. The Ghost Fleet legends. Those were human operations too, were not they? Jake nodded. Whenever a species became too aggressive or threatened galactic stability, human forces would intervene quietly. We preferred that other species think of us as mythical rather than real. General Frank Miller's image appeared on the main screen. Ladies and gentlemen of the Galactic Council, humanity is offering Y